Welcome to episode 11 of This Week in the Metaverse, lucky number 11. We have 3 items on tap for you this week, like always. So first, we're going to break down Meta Platforms. Again, that's Facebook, their earnings. There's a lot of tidbits in there, both just the numbers and then also the Metaverse strategy that we really want to dive into. Second, Naavik had a really good article looking at the developer economics on Roblox. And I think this is something we've talked about, but it's a good opportunity to come back and kind of dive into it a little more. We have some data behind it as well that we're going to talk about. And then lastly, some news from Supersocial, which we'll keep a little secret to the end. We'll let you get there, Yon, and then you can tell everyone what's going on at Supersocial. So let's just dive right into it and talk about Meta Platforms first, though. So, the stock was down 5-6% after earnings. It's down like 50% from the peak. So, being down after that big of a drawdown is pretty bad overall. They pretty much missed numbers across the board, and the outlook for the third quarter was pretty weak. There's a few factors going on with the core advertising business. We have the macro environment. When the economy's bad, it's very easy as an employer to pull back on marketing spending. So that's one. 2 is the changes with IDFA with Apple, which if you're in the mobile ad ecosystem, you know a lot about that. And 3, TikTok is taking engagement, which is taking ad dollars. So they have a lot going on there. But then they're also investing a lot of money in Reality Labs, which is their Metaverse division. That business lost $3 billion of operating profit again for the second quarter in a row. So it's on pace to lose $12 billion for the year at this run rate. It's a lot of money to plow into a business that, as the COO said, they don't expect a return on for 10 to 15 years. And then in terms of products for the Metaverse, they did announce that the Horizon application will be coming to the web by the end of this year, which we'll talk about why that's important in a second. And they also did confirm that the Project Cambria mixed reality headset, that's also known as the Quest Pro in a lot of circles, is going to come out this year. So a lot to unpack. Yon, where do you want to start?
I want to start with one of the other things that I think we read in The Verge, I believe, where Mark Zuckerberg apparently spoke to his team about their direct competition with Apple. And I'm going to refer to some of the things you've outlined with what you've mentioned here. But I think bottom line of what he said is Apple is a competitor, practically speaking, but also philosophically. And what he described was that Apple is really building an end-to-end ecosystem that is closed, where they do everything, versus what he believed to be the better benchmark for Facebook, which is Android. However, here is kind of what my instinct, and it's my theory, and I could be completely wrong, but I don't know why I have the sense that he's only potentially pursuing an Android-like direction because there's so much backlash against Apple, but also because Apple is so good at building that closed system. And he knows that when Apple launches their own VR, AR, mixed reality headset, it's going to be the Apple ecosystem. And I think he's starting to position Facebook, Meta, as the alternative, exactly like what Google did with Android. From a device perspective, it does seem like maybe aside of Samsung, there isn't really another company that is really building a tech stack on the software and hardware integration that can really compete against what Apple is doing. And I think on that front, they are definitely ahead of the curve in terms of other competitors. If it's with Oculus that has now increased the pricing, or if it's Project Cambria, which is kind of the more complex MR headset. And so I think it's going to be interesting to really keep an eye on how is that quote unquote Android strategy translated? What does it mean really for the ecosystem? And let's also remember that is that Facebook's DNA? We know how difficult it is to change a corporate DNA in terms of the team, the talent, the way you operate. And so my question is, can Facebook even pull an Android strategy when it comes to this next iteration of devices?
You talk about the DNA of Facebook, of Meta, and it's like, this is also happening at a time where they're completely ripping up the script of the DNA of the company. I mean, I started using this term, the TikTokification of everything, but they basically are scrapping their most valuable and tangible asset, which is the friend graph. And they're going towards a completely algorithmic driven feed going forward, both in Instagram and core Facebook. And so they're going away from the model where you saw things that your friends liked and did and everything to they're going to use an algorithm to push content to you. Twitter got backlash for this. I use the Twitter recents. I don't use the suggested feed. And so, it'd be interesting to see how successful that is and this TikTokification of what they're doing because, they're growing Reels. Reels is now 20% of engagement on Facebook, I believe is what they said, but it's only generating $1 billion of revenue, whereas like the whole business is generating a hell of a lot more than that. And so they're cannibalizing a lot of their engagement to grow this TikTok competitor. Can they do that? So they are kind of, completely changing the DNA of what the core nature of social interaction and friends is on the platform. And then you tie that to this next platform, the Metaverse and Horizon. On the one hand, I thought that it was very good to see that they're bringing this to the web and, unpacking it from Oculus and single devices, VR, because, there's several billion smartphone users in the world. These people have supercomputers in their pockets. They don't, gating it behind a VR headset where there's only tens of million, maybe 100 million installed base, depending on how you count it, opening this up to so many more users is the only way it's going to be successful. But I always thought that was going to be successful because of their friend graph. And so if you're not going to use that asset, that friend graph anyways, I'm curious how successful this actually will be. Does this end up like Core where they build this great platform technologically, but no one uses it?
And I think the biggest lesson that we can take from some of the most successful consumer marketplaces over the past decade, definitely the last 5 years, are, platforms like, of course, the App Store when it comes to the iPhone, which is, one of the biggest success story in consumer technology over the last 50 years. The Apple, iPhone App Store or the iOS App Store. And then the second example is Roblox, right? With the incredible marketplace that they have for, games, experiences in 3D. And I think that the takeaway is how mission critical. There's just no other way to describe it, how mission critical it is to have a passionate, committed, dedicated, enthusiastic, and loyal developer community. And when you look at Facebook, they do have a developer community that has been building a bunch of different experiences over many, many years. So they have a very successful marketplace, even though, the most successful products from Facebook is not the marketplace, is their own products, right? The news feed or Messenger and WhatsApp and Instagram, which they acquired. And so I think it's kind of the jury's out there, and I think it's going to be out there for a long time, how effective, successful, and scale they can be at building those massive marketplaces that will attract incredible developers. And, I'm using myself with Supersocial as an example. Like, we are primarily focused on Roblox today. We constantly keep an eye on many, many other platforms. A lot is going to have to happen for us to be triggered and excited and to justify investing talent and time and money in building for the Horizon ecosystem.
Right. I mean, we have to put this in context that Roblox has been doing this this is year 17 of Roblox, I believe, that we're in now. Is it 18 almost? And, and these professional organizations on Roblox have been doing this for a few years now because the talent has developed over this lifetime to build this developer base. So what does Meta and Facebook do to seed the developer base? That's going to be the biggest thing to watch out for over the next, call it 12 to 18 months as they roll out these platforms. How do they bring developers on? How do they incentivize that? How do they train them on their technology to build these experiences? So as you said, the jury's out. It's all on them to execute and to onboard developers in a seamless manner. And I think that's a nice segue to our next topic for today, where we're going to talk about developer economics, particularly on Roblox this time. And I think this is inspired by an article from Naavik, but it's obviously something we've talked about in the past with Roblox. For those that don't know, Roblox developer payouts, if you just compare it to like publishing a mobile game on iOS or Android, the payouts aren't great. I mean, if you just look on the aggregate at Roblox's financials, when you do the adjustments and you look at the cash numbers and not the US GAAP numbers, they pay out about 23% of every dollar brought in to developers. That's not, again, that's not 70% plus or minus you get from Apple or Google. So, but do remember that out of the dollar that comes in, 30 cents of that is still going to Apple and Google. So really, they're getting 23 cents out of 70. And remember that Roblox also has to invest in R&D, right? They have to build out technology. They have to build out the infrastructure, the cloud infrastructure. So they're trying to invest. They're trying to pay out to developers. They're trying to do all of this. Over time, the payout rates should rise. But obviously, this article looked at some of the organizations that are making a lot of money. And you definitely do notice, and these numbers are in Roblox's filing, so you can see it. But if you just look at the earnings tiers, for example, there was only 7 developers in 2021 that made over $10 million. There was another 74, so 81 total that made over $1 million. So, the numbers, and Supersocial probably falls into one of those buckets, right? It's a very, considering there's thousands and thousands of developers on Roblox, it's a very small percentage that are making these large sums. So Yon, I guess as someone building a business on Roblox, you probably have a different angle than me, who's just in the numbers and a financial person, but maybe your take on it, and then we can kind of talk about as well where this is going over time and how they do plan to increase payouts over time.
So, first, there are millions of creators on the platform, millions. And this includes creators this includes developers who create avatar items for the general marketplace, not necessarily bespoke games or experiences, but there are millions. And so the number, as you pointed out, Matthew, is the number of significant revenue generating studios or developers on the platform is very, very small in the grand scheme of things. However, we also need to keep in mind, and I kind of reiterate that a lot. Although Roblox is 17 years old as a company, it is only just in the past 2-3 years really started to mature as a marketplace. And not only it's only starting to mature as a marketplace, a lot of the developers who are making this revenue, a lot of the top grossing games on the platform have been built by very young developers, very early stage studio that are mostly bootstrapped, not venture backed. There are a few that are venture backed, but mostly these are, a new generation of bootstrapping studios where the developers started as players in most cases. And I think there are 2 callouts I want to make. The first one is that this is a very early stage platform. It's a marketplace that is only now really starting to mature. From a standpoint of you're seeing more experiences, you see growing user base, you see more brands coming in. And so we are at the very early stages, in my mind, of Roblox as a large global scale marketplace. And I think there are going to be more and more and more opportunities of how Roblox enables developers on the platform to generate more revenue. For example, the engagement payout, which is basically revenue that Roblox takes from premium subscribers and attach it to games that have high engagement rates. And it's basically coming out of the subscription money that Roblox generates. That's a way for Roblox to increase the revenue without changing the revenue split. The second call out I will make is that not only we are at the very early stage of the platform, but I also think that Roblox is aging up gradually and is also expanding geographically. And so a data point that I think is important to keep in mind, while only 2/3 of the platform's user base comes from North America, they generate about 2/3 of the revenue. That tells us that majority of their international growth doesn't yet translate to revenue per user. And I think that's also part of the journey that Roblox is going through. And then the third call out I would make, which I also think is important to outline, yes, the take rate you have as a developer on other platform, if it's iOS or AAA or PC gaming, is bigger for the developer. But the economics are different. You also don't need the size of the team and the level of investment to build one particular experience. like you would do on Roblox. For example, and I think it outlines in the report that Naavik released, which, by the way, great shout out to our friends at Naavik for the excellent report. It's outlined that on Roblox you can ship a great solid 3D multiplayer experience in 6 months and anywhere from $150,000 to $250,000 investment. I just want to clarify this to our audience. We're talking about a multiplayer, 3D, social, avatar-based experience with a matching system, with the economy, with everything integrated in 6 months.
And let's just put that number in perspective real quick. Call of Duty costs like $300 to $500 million a year, right? So we're talking about 1/1000th of the scale of investment relative to Call of Duty.
So in order of magnitude, cheaper and faster than any other platform in the history of interactive entertainment. And yes, it's not going to look like Call of Duty, and it's not going to generate the Call of Duty revenue, but the time and the cost is a fraction of what it would take to build on PC or AAA and also mobile today. And let's not forget that mobile is so saturated that you need millions of dollars of marketing before you even generate $1 of revenue if you really want to make it big, because you're competing against the Supercells of the world and the Kings of the world and the Blizzards of the world and so on and so forth. And so the unit economics of building a business is different. And so yes, we are still early stage, but I am obviously biased, but I'm bullish on the prospect of building next generation businesses on the Roblox platform. And I do believe and intend for us as Supersocial to be one of the biggest companies that are being built on that ecosystem in the next decade.
And so I'll just put some more numbers behind this because I'm a numbers guy. One of the big costs, as I mentioned, is the commissions for Apple and Google. If we get to a point where those get reduced because we can use alternative payment systems, that's a lot of money that can go back into the pockets of developers. So that's a big bucket to increase the payouts, because that's 30 cents of every dollar, remember, going to Apple and Google. Subscriptions, if you've noticed, don't go through Apple and Google. You have to pay for the subscriptions outside of the app stores. And so that's already usurping. They have teased in the past also the idea, the concept of experience specific subscriptions. So if I'm a heavy Ghostopia user and I just want to subscribe to them to get extra content, extra whatever, that's also an opportunity for developers as well. And that's more direct revenue for developers. I do think the thing that Roblox needs to do as the platform matures is really think about growth advertising and user acquisition. If we think about mobile, right, and how successful that's been, that's because there was this huge ecosystem of growth advertising and user acquisition that helped companies find the people that are going to be the most valuable inside of their experiences. And Roblox isn't yet at the point where they can support that. But I think as the platform matures, as you get more professional developer organizations working on Roblox, that's going to be almost a non-starter to get some of them to switch over from other platforms, because that's how they're used to making games is, what's my LTV on user acquisition and these sorts of calculations. And once you really make it easier for developers to find the best users for them that are going to monetize the best, then you really start getting excited. And if anyone uses Roblox, I dabble with it. I'm not a heavy user at all, but finding stuff on there is very difficult. It's not a clean user face. It's, finding experiences, finding things to do is not clean. It's clunky. It's old. It needs to be updated and made. It needs to be easier to find stuff that's going to interest you. And I think over time they'll get there. And these are the tools that have to be.
I fully agree. And I think they need to bring the platform to a place where the discoverability, the user interface, the avatar-based social network, all of those things are on par and even better than the marketplaces that are dominating the internet today, which is Google Play and iOS and the Xbox App Store, right? Like, they need to be on par with that level of execution. And you're right. And I think it's going to take time. And I think we all need to be kind of patient. And I think anyone that is a, existing shareholder of Roblox stock, this is a journey. This company is on the right trajectory, but things take time. I think the biggest indication of the quality of work Roblox is doing and will do is looking at the hires, the executive hires that they brought on board, over the last couple of years. If it's the chief product officer, Manuel, obviously they already have Craig Donato, who is the chief business officer for a few years now and is doing a fantastic job. If you look at Barbara Messing, the chief marketing officer, if you're looking at how they're expanding within those organizations, if you're looking at the chief scientist they brought on board, right? And if you look at the Zynga CTO, previous CTO that we talked, Matthew, in one of our episodes that they brought on board for the developer platform, you are talking about some phenomenal executive level talent that they brought from some of the best technology companies in the world. And it takes time to put this machine into place. And also one more thing that we need to keep in mind, COVID accelerated Roblox probably by about 5 to 7 years in terms of growth. They probably never thought they're going to get to where they are so fast. And so from an operating capabilities perspective, they are still chasing behind, they're still falling behind on what they need to have to deliver on all of their priorities and all of their opportunities. And this just takes time. And, so, watch out. I think there's still a lot of things that are going to happen on the platform over the next 2 to 3 years.
Fun stat before I pass it over to you. And I had pulled these numbers up. Facebook has like 2 billion daily active users plus or minus. The average time spent per day on Facebook's about 30 minutes. Roblox has about 55 million daily active users, but the average time spent is almost 5 times that. So Roblox users are much more engaged, even though there's not as many of them. So we got to, how do we turn that engagement into revenue is the next step. And now with that, let's kick it back to Yon. You got some big news from Supersocial.
Well, I'm super, super thrilled to share that this week we've announced Supersocial's first brand partnership project. We've partnered with Nars Cosmetics, which is one of the most innovative and pioneering beauty brands, prestige beauty brands, owned by Shiseido, which is a large Japanese corporation. And, we've partnered with them in really building a new differentiated immersive virtual world called Nars Color Quest, which is now available on the Roblox platform. And what's really unique is that really we've been pushing the boundaries with this experience beyond what anything else that exists on the platform and beyond what we at Supersocial have done. And that doesn't only include the graphical fidelity and the beautiful world that our team has created, and the surfaces, and using advanced technology that, like the new material surface that Roblox released, layered clothing, and a bunch of other things. But also we've created new features that never existed on the Roblox platform, specifically tailored to this experience. And a couple of examples. The first one is Snapshot. Snapshot is essentially a feature very much like Instagram. You can take a selfie of yourself inside the virtual experience and invite friends to like it and share it and kind of look at what other players are doing inside the experience. And it's innovative and it's unique. And it also required some really technical optimization and innovation from our team. So that's the first one. And then the second one is the customization tool of your makeup, of your avatar's face. Matthew, as we talked about many times on the podcast, personal expression, expressing yourself in the metaverse as your 3D avatar is one of the biggest promises of what's exciting about this next era of the internet in 3D. And what a better way to empower young people to use the incredible collection of icons and makeup products from the Nars collection and translating that into a system where they have full, complete control and freedom in how do they want their face of their avatar to appear. And so that's very innovative. And what we've also done, which I think is unique with branded experiences on the Roblox platform, is we didn't just build a brand experience. We took the brand values and the products of the brand, and we translated that to an immersive virtual experience that really feels just like almost like a great Nintendo game, the quality. And I'm really proud of that work, because how do you take a makeup brand and you turn that into a game world that doesn't feel like a branded world? And so I'm very proud of that. I think we've pushed the envelope, we've pushed the boundaries to launch a groundbreaking experience, and I'm super thrilled it's now live. We have thousands of people already playing every minute of the day. And I think that's going to really push the boundaries on what other brands want to do on the platform, either if they work with Supersocial or not, but really using Nars as in a way that I like to refer to as a platform defining experience.
I haven't jumped into it yet, but I watched the promo video, and it does look like more than what some other brands have done, where it's just kind of like creating a virtual store. It's more along the lines of like the NFL Tycoon, where it is a game in of itself, an experience that reflects the brand, but it's not just like come buy fake makeup. Like there's way much more to it, and I think that's what's exciting, and that's what we're going to see a lot more of. And you know, from a more macro perspective on the Roblox platform, this is kind of one of the next big frontiers for them is branded content, getting brands to come in and invest more through developers like Supersocial. There's others out there that are doing this, I'm sure, because there's probably more brands wanting to do this, and there are developers capable of doing it for them. And so it's just, you know, as we get more of these and more, you know, high quality experiences that are supported by brands with economies built into them, if you tie together all of these monetization mechanisms that we talked about, whether it's in-item, you know, in-experience items, whether it's in-experience subscriptions, you know, just experience-based payouts. And once I jump into this one, you'll get some payouts for my subscription. You know, these are these are the type of things that are going to help these larger organizations really, you know, grow and become, you know, really powerful developer organizations that, you know, as you know, when we look out 10 years from now, you know, when we look back at the dawn of mobile, right? It was like Zynga and King and all these companies that started at the forefront of mobile. You know, I do believe, and I don't want to pick favorites because obviously I'm biased with working with you on Supersocial through this, but whether it's GameFam, Supersocial, whomever, I think in a decade or whatever, there will be a crop of companies that are born out of the Roblox platform, just like we had with mobile, just like we had with Facebook, just like we have with every new platform. There's a whole crop of companies that come from that, and I think this is a great way for them to really make that next step in professionalizing organizations.
And fully agree, and I do want to make a couple of call outs, right? Like first, I truly believe that over the next 5 to 7 years, there are going to be $3 to $5 billion companies built on top of Roblox. So that's just my hypothesis and where I think we're going. The other couple of call outs I want to make why brand experiences are really strategic for Roblox is 2 reasons. Number one is it will potentially help Roblox age up the platform and not only attract aged up demographic, but retain them. So that's number one. The second one is brand awareness for the Roblox platform to attract those audiences, and not just in the US, but also internationally. And I think when more international brands from other continents, and here it's important to say, in the top 10 countries of users on Roblox, we have the Philippines, Thailand, Russia, Brazil, Mexico, Indonesia. These are new economies, and there are going to be brands in those economies who want to build branded experiences as more and more and more users in these geographies are coming into the platform. And so I think this is why it's so strategic and so good to see more and more and more brands are coming into the Roblox platform to help with the growth and the scale of the platform.
100%, you know, and we saw this with mobile too, right? I mean, as we expanded geographically, we had to figure out new monetization models, advertising, right? Because there's countries in the world where players either don't have propensity or ability or both to spend on content, whether it's avatar items or subscriptions. So how else can we monetize that engagement? Advertising tends to be how it gets done. And so I think that over time, these business models with these professionalized organizations, with these branded experiences, you know, kind of ties back the last 2 topics of the day, but because they do go together. And you know, and I think this is how Roblox takes that next step. You know, I made the call out when we interviewed Craig that I do think Roblox will be a $1 trillion company someday. I still stand by that. You know, it's gone south very quickly since I said that, but I still stand by that call at some point.
Well, you said the trillion, you said the trillion, and I tweeted last year that I think by the end of the decade, Roblox will be valued more than Facebook. So, you know, we have a lot to go on those 2 predictions.
Well, Facebook's still going down. Roblox has bounced about 50% from the lows. Facebook is still going down. So, you know, maybe
the question
maybe
is what prediction will happen first: the $1 trillion market cap or Roblox surpassing Facebook market cap by the end of the decade?
Yeah, you know, right now I think it's in your court a little bit more just because of the way things are going. But who knows? There's a lot ahead of us, and I think that's a great place to wrap up. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and stay tuned. Next week we have another episode of Into the Metaverse dropping, where we go really deep into blockchain and Web3 and, you know, easing the onboarding process to Web3 for the average consumer. So stay tuned for that.